there's an even bigger, all the way up to 2008.
Oh, okay. Let me get this one over here. You said up to, oh yeah, to 2008.
Yeah, the one. This shows how the split happened and tells the history behind it.
Okay.
How the Syphaxes that were slaves under George Washington Custis can all relate their ancestry back to Martha Washington.
Okay. To Martha Washington.
But as far as their descendants outnumber the Lees 10-1 or so, as of 2008 or so, we have their family tree in the last room on the way out.
Interesting. Why? That's a lot of Syphaxes.
Well, it's like there was a lot of history here that was beyond just the Lee family.
Yeah.
And the Civil War. Everyone likes to talk about the history books of Marianna Randolph Custis marrying Robert E. Lee and having their 7 children here.
Right.
But there were over 150 people here.
Wow.
So the Syphaxes, there were 6 families here, African American families. 2 of them, the Syphaxes and the Grays, really made it into American history on their own accord, not having anything to do with the Lees.
Okay.
The Syphaxes, well, actually the Grays, Selina Gray saved George Washington's treasury, all his furnishings during the Civil War, armed with only a set of keys and a broomstick.
Wow.
And she remained behind when the Lee family left, out of a request from Marianna Randolph Custis. So, yeah, if it wasn't for her, well, yeah, you'd be, you wouldn't have your stuff at the Capitol building, Mount Vernon, or anything else. And that was because she told the supervising officer here for the Army of the Potomac that was stationed here, this was the majority of the Civil War forces at the time, at the start, that soldiers were coming in here using Martha Washington's chinaware as target practice. They were stealing curtains from here that were part of the Washington family, and they're going through the basement trying to steal items out, decorate their own homes, which of course this is wrong. So the general who was in charge of the Army of the Potomac took all those items and ordered everyone to put it in the U.S. Patent Office, and they sealed it out. Well, they kept it there until the end of the war. So that was Selina Gray's contribution.
Okay.
Syphax even had more, but I mean, you got, why we have this information here, they were one of the first success stories after the Civil War ended.
Yes.
But hopefully I'm not going into too much detail on it. So anyways, to explain this, George Washington Custis had relations with Martha Washington, a slave that he had inherited from his mother, Martha Dandridge Custis Washington. Now, she gets pregnant first before his own wife.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of complication there.
Right.
George Washington Custis doesn't really want to acknowledge this, really. But, so what he does, somebody hit the, our little sensor thing.
Okay.
But anyways, what happens is that she is given birth at around 1802, 1803 or so. And George Washington, so she's born into slavery.
Right.
But George Washington Custis sells her to a Quaker for $1. Quakers do not believe in slavery. So the Quaker spends the time and writes out her paperwork for her freedom, leaving George Washington Custis out of the mess. Marina Carter then moves back to Arlington Estates on her own free accord.
Yes.
And George Washington Custis gives her 17 acres of land when she moves back and her own log cabin. And she gets to marry a slave, the man of the house, the butler, Charles Syphax.
Okay.
And that's the first marriage that happens underneath that archway in the family parlor in the back. And their descendants, besides outnumbering the Lees 10-1, they continue also to live here into the Civil War and after. They have their permanent homestead here. And give you an idea of what some of their descendants did. This fellow right here, John Syphax, was one of the first pretty much government position. I'm not sure if he was a state rep or as part. He was a state rep. Yeah, he was a state representative for the state of Virginia. He was the first African American.
Wow.
After the Civil War.
Okay.
William Syphax, he held 3 elected positions. And what it shows over here was that William Syphax was served as the chief messenger of the Department of Interior. He was a delegate to the General Assembly, and he was a justice of the peace. He knew legal ruling. He fought to extend Freeman's Village, which was a slave refugee camp that was here, to educate slaves, get them back on their feet. Missionaries would come in and give them a job or something. That way they could, once they learned a trade, they could go out into the rest of the world. But it also provided shelter from the rest of the world from them.
Okay.
And so he fought for that. And John, when the U.S. government pays for this, so when eventually the U.S. government says, okay, we've let you stay here long enough, this is only meant to be a temporary solution, you got to leave now, you got 90 days to go. And this was about 20 years later. Some people that had actually been living here had homes and bought land here. John Syphax comes in and basically fights at the state level and says no. They should receive just compensation for the homes that they bought and that they made. They might be in bad condition, but they should receive something so they're not completely out on the streets. So, through his efforts, the U.S. military comes in and basically surveys the land to figure out what was worthy, what the value of some of these homes that they're forcing people to leave from. And then the families were given giving money according to what the condition of their home was in before they left. And they also fought that they were being let go during Christmas time, but in return the state was saying, well, you have 90 days, we want you to leave when it gets warmer out. So that was also one of the other things that John fought for.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. So, is the Colored Troops lecture, where is that going to be?
The African American. Oh yeah. Some of the first African American troops were trained here too.
Oh, they were.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have.
We're having a program today
Over the Tomb of the Unknowns.
The Civil War Unknowns at 11 o'clock.
Yes.
So I think they're setting up right
The
now.
Civil War where?
Unknowns.
Unknowns. That's a big
Oh,
tomb, 2,100
okay. At
at
the
end of
Unknown
Rose Garden.
Soldiers, that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Tomb of the Unknowns.
Tune of the Unknowns. Okay, so I have to find out where that
It's at the end of
is.
Rose Garden, 2,100 dead. Big 10
Down
by
here?
20 vault. Yeah.
Okay.
And they're going to have this. They're part of the African American Regiment for reenacting for Civil War. And they're
Fantastic.
going to be there too.
Okay, you said at 11? She
had
said
the time
11.
right, 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, that gentleman, William Syphax, was the first one to start the African American school system in Washington, D.C.
Which one was William?
William, right here.
okay. Fantastic.
So John was the first representative in the state of Virginia that was African American.
Uh-huh.
William started the African American school system. And I'm sure one or two of his brothers and stuff were also teachers at that school.
Well, thank you. Thank
You're
you so much. Okay.